Can life be an infinite game?
There are two kinds of games. There are finite games and there are infinite games.
Can it operate and play more like a video game? Something that grabs us, pulls us in, calls to us. I mean, we even have a game called The Sims, where you swimming in a pool and eating a sandwich. But people would rather play The Sims than play themselves. Hello and welcome back to Self-Help Me, the show where I self-help you, self-help yourself. Today we're asking the question, why is it that some things in our lives feel like a chore? We don't want to do them, while other things completely captivate us. What's the difference? And also, why are the things that captivate us deadly and destructive and addictive and horrible sometimes, while the things we avoid could change our lives and make our dreams come true? Why? Could you imagine if you just woke up like, all I want to do is paint and take marginal steps towards my new business and make my wife recognize the rare gift she is and help the homeless? I want it. Really playing the game of life, if you will, with the same focus, intensity to get better, and quick reaction time as you would a video game. And to help us out today, we are enlisting James Carse, author of Finite and Infinite Games. Finite game, as James Carse defines it, is something that is played for the purpose of winning. Basketball, gambling, competing for a position, beating your time in some sort of athletic endeavor, going head-to-head for a romantic partner.
Some people say money can't buy love. $50,000 can.
The hottest women in the world, all competing for the love of one man.
Come to Papa!
My man, where's my man?
These are the kind of games where there's a way to win and a way to lose, finite parameters and boundaries, and an end, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Meanwhile, an infinite game is played for the purpose of continuing to play. So you might think of infinite games more in the way that kids on the playground play. If you want to understand infinite versus finite play, watch the movie Big, when Tom Hanks plays racquetball with his boss.
Oh, I never said that.
Yes, you did.
Give me the... Give me the ball. Give me the ball.
It's just such a perfect example of like a playful child, because in Big, he's a child who woke up one day in an adult body, and so he's sort of living in the world as a child. You'll see the childlike infinite play versus the adult, here are the rules, all I care about is winning.
Well, couldn't it be like a robot that turns into something like a bug or something?
A bug.
Yeah. Like a big prehistoric insect with maybe like giant claws that could pick up a car and crush it like that.
Gentlemen, listen to him. You've got a very good idea here.
Sizes and things. And
Susan, we could do ladybugs.
Just come to a meeting and say bugs.
ants and stuff. And
Well done, Josh.
This idea of childhood play has been studied. The great child psychologist Piaget figured out that play is essential for how children learn. You know, sitting in a chair memorizing isn't actually where the learning happens. It's out in the yard, baby. And I know I learned a lot of lessons out there. And I went through the book and just found a few of these dichotomies he sets up between finite and infinite games to describe them better. And I put them into this little chart. See if you can almost imagine somebody who's an infinite player versus somebody who's a finite player, and if you've ever met any of these people. So the finite game is serious, while the infinite game is playful. The finite game, you're training. In the infinite game, you're being educated. You're learning. Finite game is about power, developing power in the game. Infinite game is about endurance. The longer that you can play a game, if games are intimately related to development, connection, and fun, the longer you can endure in that, the more development you'll undergo. Whereas somebody who just wins the game and it's over, they've stopped developing. Which is, to go back to Piaget, something he noticed. Children who couldn't figure out how to play a game, and we go on about this kid, everyone pulls them aside and is like, you got to figure this out because you're going to have no friends. Everyone's going to hate you. You're going to be the smelly kid. Learning how to play a game as a child, according to Piaget, really determined your success in life, your emotional stability, and other key things. So would it just stop in childhood, or could we learn from this process in adulthood and bring some of that childlike spirit back? Finite games are about controlling others, dominating others. Infinite games are more about like seducing others. Do you want to... Everyone's bought in an infinite game. You don't have to force it, and the game succeeds as long as everybody's willingly playing. The finite game is more like scripted acting. You're playing a position or a role. Infinite game is more like open drama or improv. You're reacting and changing and growing. The finite game is more like being a machinist. Like Christian Bale in that movie no one saw. Infinite game is more like being a gardener. You're creating something that can create itself. Finite game is about defining the self. Infinite game is about discovering the self. Actually, when I make documentaries, I like to think of it this way. I'm not creating a documentary, I'm discovering a documentary. And actually, I got that from Chris Rock when he made the documentary Hair.
What's your definition of good hair?
Something that looks relaxed.
About hair. Makes it so much more fun. You can just create documentaries forever because there's no effort required. Really good insight, Chris Rock. You might start asking yourself the question, how can I make something that's a little more finite, more infinite? And how can I make the infinite grounded in the finite? Seeing this like all things as a yin and yang, not either or, either and. But definitely lead towards the infinite. A few more of these. Finite games are about living in the past. You celebrate old wins, my old records. And infinite games are about potential in the future. How long could we keep this going? Finite games are closed, meaning they have closed set of rules. Infinite games are open. That's my favorite distinction, maybe. I mentioned that Carse studied religion. His philosophical underpinning for this book is Soren Kierkegaard, who was a Christian existentialist. So there is a spiritual component to this idea that play, infinite play, might be closer to a divine experience, a religious experience, as William James might put it, a sublime experience. So not only are you choosing to just operate under a different attitude that gets you a better result, you're also opening yourself up to more meaning in your work. Infinite Games was based on Kierkegaard's concept of authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic, to be oneself? And what should one do in the service of oneself or an authentic life? That concept actually is making a comeback. I did a little Google search, and it's being searched more. Another idea similar to authenticity was sincerity, commitment to your work. You're sincere about your work, a commitment to your role in society. Whereas authenticity is being true to yourself. So it's a little more independent and disconnected. Meanwhile, autonomy, independent, self-sufficient, or not under the control of anyone else. A lot of people imagine freedom as just not being controlled by any internal or external force. That's what Stoicism is about. So we got some concepts about what does it mean to be free, to be yourself. And that's important because part of what makes a game infinite is that it's infinitely expressing something true about the participants. So authenticity can be sort of a wellspring of play. I think people can overthink authenticity and say, is this really what I'm meant to do? I need to go to Bali and find myself. I need to do some more ayahuasca and figure out who am I really. And there's something to be said for that. But really in my life, what I've discovered is I already know what I like to do, and whether or not it was me trying to impress my dad or me trying to get along with, kids in a new school because I was moving all the time. So I learned how to be funny, whether it was arbitrary or not. At some point along the way, I embraced those things and I said, these are comfortable. I'd like to see where I can take these. And so the more I try to figure out like who I am authentically, the more I just go away from those things and then have to come back later. So there's such a thing as overthinking. Do it or do it not, you will regret both. I love that Kierkegaard quote. So he's joining me in this idea that like it's not so much what you do, it's the authentic way that you do it. Sartre also jumped into this conversation about authenticity. Sartre's authenticity was just acknowledging potential. Isn't that cool? Given enough time and resources, anything is a potential. Possibility is more intoxicating than pleasure, he says. Many of us pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that we hurry past it. The real pleasure is in possibility anyway. And there's always possibility. So it's not determined. It's not outcome dependent. Just thinking of this unlimited possibility is more intoxicating than pleasure. And it can be permanent, infinite, and under your control. Wow. Wow. Authenticity isn't static, but is an ongoing interaction with the world. It's going to change. It doesn't mean you can't adopt identity roles. I've adopted the role of comedian, writer. You might adopt the role of father, and you will, or boyfriend or girlfriend. You will adopt these roles, but you want to think about them as ongoing and changing and dynamic. But as somebody who's more like pie in the sky, I love the finite. I love like nuts and bolts. Here's what we're doing. Simple rules. And I'll do a video soon on, the number of sort of daily scheduling tools and gamification that I do in the finite realm of here are my boundaries for myself. Here are my rules to get going. I'm not doing this for this many months. These are incredible, these boundaries, and creative people when they have boundaries like George Lucas in the first Star Wars, all these financial boundaries and limits. They tend to bring out the most in people who are more infinite and open. Think about this in sort of a Aristotelian sense. You've got two values here, finite and infinite, and which one are you closer to and which one are you more scared of? Like if you're just like an artist on psychedelics and I was like, what if you ran every single morning at 7 a.m.? And if that terrifies you, that's the finite. Like lean into the more conventional because it really is about a balance. When I called myself a comedian or a writer, that was a limit, that was a label, that was a finite game in a way, but it simplified so much and just told me this is our value right now. And it changed. But I remember it being so powerful just from a subjective point of view. I am a writer. When I said that, I think I even made a Facebook group. It was like early on. I declared that. And now I can like take steps towards that. You might say that's finite, but very, very, very powerful. I remember my mom worked in the inner city and she's like, a lot of my students want to be rappers, but can you suggest that all of them will be rappers or is that unrealistic? And, this question comes up like, should you tell someone if they're like, I want to be a rapper or an influencer? No, that's unrealistic. Pick something better. No, because first of all, the realistic job, like be a lawyer, that might not exist in 10 years. It's like, oh, my job is turning into AI now. So realistic itself is a faulty concept. But then the other thing is it discourages them from the infinite play that was associated with their game of becoming an artist. And I watched these guys in particular, and I remember just thinking, no matter what they end up doing, it could have nothing to do with hip hop. They could never make it. Like in everybody's definition, they're a failure. They learned work ethic. They stayed sober. They got all this equipment. They learned how to get clients and make money off of it. Now they have a career out of it, probably confidence and relationship and style and just like check. Let's pursue art as an infinite game, and it developed them. Remember what we were saying about they played longer. They had more they could try because they weren't waiting for the opportunity. They were just making a mixtape that no one might listen to. And I remember whenever somebody would bring up, we can't all be rappers, I would just think of these guys and go, every one of us could try. And in the process, keep the game going and develop. If you can't fail, you can't learn. Okay. So in conclusion, and with a quote from our boy Kierkegaard, who we have discussed throughout this and who inspired Carse in the first place in this book, life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. We're just here to experience this thing Play is the metaphor we use, the best metaphor we can use for how we might experience it over time. And the more we experience, the better. Stop searching for the answer to life. Stop trying to figure it out. And just make the game more engaging. And you know how to do that because you've been a part of engaging games. So just do that stuff. Keep the play going. Keep the development going. Keep the connection going. Keep the interplay with reality going. And don't overthink it. All right, if you all haven't liked and subscribed, please do that for more videos on the best ideas.